Good afternoon. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Great to be with you here. It's our midweek edition of the show. We've got Game 1 of the NBA Finals tonight. We'll have a preview for it on the program. SBJ will be with us to give us the latest props, the odds, and everything else that you can imagine under the sun. NBA Finals Game 1 is tonight. Also, the PGA Tour season rolls on. Brady Cannon makes a weekly visit, as he always does with us, to tell us what we can expect this week. We got Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report, and also Danny Burke will weigh in on the latest on the NBA Finals. Maybe we'll mix in some Major League Baseball as well. But the big story today as we begin, the number one seed in the French Open on the men's side got knocked out last week. This week it is the women, so we're not going to have any of the top players playing for the championship this week at Roland Garros. Aryna Sabalenka has been eliminated from the Open after losing to number 25 Diana Schneider, and she is officially out. So now on the men's and women's out in terms of semifinals and finals, the last time that this has happened was 1977, before even getting to the semifinals with Alcaraz and Sinner and everybody out. I guess it'll be new winners at the French Open in that Grand Slam this coming weekend. Now, meanwhile, in the NFL, we did get one small piece of news yesterday, but a very big signing. It's Drake London, who signed a contract extension after that great year that he had last year. 4 years, $141 million. He's one of the highest paid wide receivers in the NFL right now. JSN, $42 million. He leads everybody in terms of AAV, but London now going to be right there, and of course, going to be a big part of what the Falcons do later this summer and into the fall. Meanwhile, in Major League Baseball last night, the Seattle Mariners take care of business against the Mets like everybody else does. It was Logan Gilbert, 5 innings pitched, 8 strikeouts. Patrick Wisdom made his season debut. He's been out of the game for a bit. He even hit a home run. Carson Benj went 2 for 3 for the Mets, but it was not enough. Here is Carlos Mendoza on this sinking season for New York.
Carlos, is this just getting to be too big of a hole to climb out of?
I don't think so, but I mean, we got to start playing better. That's the bottom line. So, yeah, I mean, until we start putting together we're playing consistent baseball. That's the only way to get out of it.
All right, so the Diamondbacks and Dodgers out west continuing their series, and the Dodgers do take game 2 as LA beats Arizona 6-5. Shohei Ohtani had a triple and drove in a couple of runs, and Freddie Freeman hit a home run and also had 3 hits in the game. So naturally, top of the lineup production led to the 1-run win. Here is skipper Dave Roberts on that.
It's great. It's kind of how we built this team on the offensive side, and Shohei's been really good the last few weeks. Freddie's been good the last month. All of May was really good for Freddie, and I think Shohei too. So certainly it makes life a lot easier for everyone else, and seems like there's always traffic, creating a situational at bat, which Andy did a nice job, that second time to hit the sac fly. But yeah, there's some other guys that we got to get going, but it is good that the guys at the top, and I think also the guys at the bottom, did a nice job.
In the American League, the New York Yankees dealing with a couple of different issues yesterday. Aaron Judge did not play with a bruised rib cage. Unclear if he will play this week or sort of what his status is. We'll find out from Aaron Boone later today. The other issue is their ace Cam Schlittler was crushed yesterday. 4 1/3, 5 hits, 5 runs, 4 earned runs. His worst start of the season easily in the Guardians' 9-4 win. It was Jose Ramirez with 3 hits, and Kyle Manzardo went 2 for 4 with a home run. Travis Bazzana also drove in 4 runs in the game. He talked about the big win after.
How would you describe your first experience as a major league player here at Yankee Stadium?
Got really loud when it was loud. The fans love to, get into it, especially above the dugout a little bit. So it's awesome. I mean, it's a premier. I mean, there might not be many better environments in the world for baseball. So everyone's excited to be here. They obviously care a lot about their fan base, and it's exciting. We love it. But yeah, same game.
Yesterday was also Lou Gehrig Day around Major League Baseball, honoring his legacy, and the Phillies win in that one, 3-2 over the Padres. Aaron Nola, one of his better starts in a bit, 5 innings pitched, 8 strikeouts, and that gave them the 3-2 win. Also, Harper homered, and Brandon Marsh, who's had a really nice season, went 4 for 4 yesterday. So Nola gets the start on Lou Gehrig Day and the win, and he discussed what it meant after.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. It really is. Obviously, hits home pretty hard for me. My uncle had it years ago, passed away from it, and my wife and I support the ALS chapter as much as we can, and what the Phillies do for ALS is really special, and what they've done over the years, and obviously what they did tonight was awesome. I think Lou Gehrig's day is important, and just to raise the awareness and raise the money and the funds as much as possible, and get the word out as much as possible is really important.
Philly still chasing down the Braves for first place in the NL East. The Braves' lead just keeps growing. They beat the Jays yesterday 4-3. Bryce Elder, 6 2/3, and also 6 strikeouts. Matt Olson had the big shot in this one, his 17th home run of the season. Here is Olson on the Braves' continually hot start.
21 games over 500 now, just playing great baseball.
Yeah, finding different ways to win. Obviously, Gosman's a hell of a starter. Bryce came out and did a great job, and finding a way to kind of push runs across when we can. We were able to get one with 2 outs there. Ozzie, shooting the 6 hole, and just really good at bats. I thought we did a good job kind of not chasing around. It's one of the better splitters in the game, and Ronnie and Mike came out early and put together some good at-bats off of him, and we just kind of got enough across the dish.
The Orioles continue to be one of the hotter teams in the American League right now. They've won 8 out of 11, beating the Red Sox, who can't scratch out a win at home at all. Orioles 4, Red Sox 2. Shane Baz went 7 innings, struck out 6. Craig Albernaz seemingly has the team going in the right direction.
8 wins out of 11 games. What are the things you're liking that this team is doing well collectively right now?
Yeah, everything. Yeah, we're playing great team baseball right now. Run the bases well. Defense has been outstanding. Starting pitching has been great. Bullpen has been keeping us afloat, especially when we weren't playing at our best. And offensively, we're starting to hit our stride. Just not being one-dimensional. We have the power, we have the thump, but now being able to play small ball, getting the bunt, moving the runners over, running the bases well, stealing bases. So it's just been a collective team game.
One of the better offseason acquisitions has to be the Brewers in their trade to get Kyle Harrison. He won again yesterday, struck out 12 batters in 5 2/3. The Brewers beat the Giants 8-3. Here's Pat Murphy on Harrison's 12 strikeout outing.
I mean, you got to give him the headlines in the Gazette. No, he was a little amped up, a little out of sorts early. You could see he's a little bit moving maybe too fast, trying too hard, whatever. But yeah, he was really good.
The Tigers finally found their offense last night, beating the Rays 8-0. Gleyber Torres off the IL hit a home run. Pirates beat the Astros 10-6. And the Rangers beat the Cardinals, and they have now won 5 straight games. In the Stanley Cup playoff pursuit, the champion could go the way of Las Vegas. They came back to beat Carolina last night 5-4 as the Golden Knights were road dogs, and they actually trailed 2-0 early in the first period. But Thomas Hertl scored the game-winning goal for Vegas with 3 minutes and 24 seconds to go. Game 2 will be on Thursday back in Carolina, and the Hurricanes still are big favorites in this one at -164 going into tomorrow night's Game 2, but the odds for the series have shifted completely as Vegas, winning on the road, are now -150 to lift the cup at the end of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll take a quick time out here on the show. When we come back next, it's time to dive into the NBA with SPJ. We'll see who ends up winning Game 1 tonight. Daniel Collins is up next here on NewsWire talking NBA Finals. So stay with us here on the grid as we'll be back right after this. All right, SBJ is with us. Tonight is game one of the NBA Finals, so we're all excited to jump back on the basketball bandwagon because honestly, we only have another about a week to go in the NBA season. We're closing in on the end here, so SBJ is with us, Daniel Collins. All right, updated odds here. Looks like I'm wrong. It looks like the line is going to stick here going into tonight. The Spurs are still -4.5. I see the total has gone up a half a point from 218 to 218.5. All right, SPJ. So now, listen, you can change and move the goalpost anytime you want throughout the series, but truly, you get the opportunity to pick the NBA champion right here. So let's go with game one and then who it's going to be.
I love an opportunity to move a goalpost, Greg. Absolutely love it. Glad to be back with you, man. And as you said, game one, we got the NBA Finals here ready to rock and roll. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in this first game of this series. Two teams that have not been to the NBA Finals in quite a long time. The Knicks, obviously, in 27 years. And there was a rematch of this particular matchup. So lots of narrative on the line tonight. We're going to see game one get started here this evening in San Antonio. I actually do have a play on a side or a total, but before I get to that, just from the line perspective, like you said, at 5.5 points was the opener. It's dropped to 4.5. So a little bit of money. Maybe people are buying into this Knicks team and how good they've been over the last 6 weeks of the postseason in the Eastern Conference. But I really lean heavily with the Spurs to get the job done. I know that their youth has been well documented and talked about all playoffs long, and something that might hinder them from lifting a championship. And this is, they're ahead of schedule and all the different things about people saying that this, Victor Wembanyama at 22, Stephon Castle at 22, Dylan Harper at 21 years old, like these guys are not yet ready to lift Larry O'Brien. But I think that they're there, man. We saw them take down the big bad Oklahoma City Thunder in the last round in the Western Conference Finals. We were seeing this team ascend right before our eyes. I had a bet before the start of the Thunder series. I think I actually told you about this when we talked about this a few weeks ago, for the Spurs to lift the cup at that point, or lift the Larry O'Brien at that point for 3-1 value. I thought it was going to get good value if they did get out of the Oklahoma City series, and they would be favorited, and they are indeed favorited to win this series right now. So I've got a good 3-1 price in my pocket right now. As for game one, though, it's going to be really interesting just to kind of see what is the temperature of both of these teams right now. You're getting the rest versus rust conversation with the Knicks, obviously not having played basketball in 10 days or so. The Spurs coming off that grueling series with the Thunder, but playing great basketball themselves. So do the Knicks look a little bit rusty? Do the Spurs come out maybe look a little bit tired in comparison with how hard of a series they just had to play? These teams played each other 3 times in the regular season. Obviously, the NBA Cup championship as well was something that they played against each other, with the Knicks coming out on top in that game. But interestingly enough, the New York Knicks have a 123 offensive rating in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, which is an NBA record since the new conference formatting was done in 2003. Alternatively, the Spurs, when they played the Spurs in the 3 matchups this season, they had 120 offensive rating. The Spurs were 3rd in the regular season in defensive rating. The only team that scored the most points per game against this Spurs team and kind of had their number was the New York Knicks. So from a matchup perspective, if you look into how they match up player by player and also offensively versus defensively, the Knicks actually do have a little bit of an advantage there. So I'm kind of fascinated to see what these coaches are going to do in these matchups, obviously with everything on the line in this particular environment. But from a game perspective in this one, I like the over. I took 218.5. You can maybe buy it down to 217.5 for a bit of juice if you would like, but I think we see 220 plus points in this game. Both of these teams have been scoring the basketball with ease. Even in the Thunder series with the Spurs, against one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, they were still able to score. 6 of the last 8 times the Spurs have been favored, the over has hit in those games. And the last point on this as well is San Antonio. I just do not think that at home they're going to not put the ball in the bucket. Victor Wembanyama is going to have to be aggressive like he was in the Oklahoma City series. 4 times he took 20-plus shots in that series. And oh, by the way, he got the job done in those games. So I think that we get a nice game to start off here with scoring. 4 of the last 6 game ones in the NBA Finals have gone over the total. If you want to look back at some historical data on some game ones there as well. So I think we see some points tonight. And I'm looking at obviously both of the superstars to have good games, but I've got some other props for some of the other role players as well.
Yeah, we'll get to that. By the way, Spurs minus 194 to win the series. If the Knicks were to somehow win tonight, this is going to flip completely. So this is your shot if you think the Knicks will win the series. Real quick, before we get to those that you like, we got the finals MVP odds, which the only significant move I saw was Brunson went from plus 210 to plus 195. Everybody is kind of the same here. I really haven't noticed much change. Do you have any lean on anyone to win the Finals MVP? I know this is generally not a very popular one because of the juice that you have to lay, especially with Wemby winning at minus 165.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to take a stab, if you think the Knicks have a chance to lift the trophy, like I said, they are in a good matchup position. I mean, Jalen Brunson would be the favorite to be the MVP, and you're getting good value there. And this line could move pretty drastically if he has a big game one. So not a bad price at almost 2-to-1 value there. If you want to look a little further down the board, I think a great stab, I actually might bet this based on looking at these odds with you right now, Craig, is Stephon Castle at 70-1. I mean, I just don't see a way that if the Spurs do win, yes, Wemby's probably going to be the MVP. But with how good Stephon Castle has been, with how much he has the basketball in his hands, and with how good he has been, not only offensively, but defensively as well, he's going to probably get the Jalen Brunson matchup for long stretches of this game and the series. So I think Castle at 70-1 is a really nice sprinkle if you want something a little bit more of the longer shot value. And if you think that the Spurs are the lifters of Larry and you don't want to take the juice with Wemby, I think Castle's a really nice spot there too.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I was on the show yesterday saying that if Wemby averages 17 points a game, which is good, 8 rebounds a game, which is good, and a block and a half or 2, which is good, and the Spurs win, there's a chance somebody else wins the Finals MVP. And those numbers are not bad. So I really, really think that there's a chance somebody else wins the MVP with some decent numbers from Wemby, which is crazy. All right, so over 218.5. That's one of SPJ's picks. Let's get the others here going into tonight.
Yeah, you know, if you want to just take a stab at some of the superstars in this game, Craig, I'm not going to fault you here. I mean, it's the biggest games, the biggest stage of the entire NBA season. If you want to lean into Wemby and Jalen Brunson, that's totally fine. But I actually went a little bit more of the opposite direction because I think that the other players in this series are going to be massive. The other guys, right? So starting off with the rookie Dylan Harper, over 6.5 rebounds and assists. This has been a line that he's been hitting very consistently, and I think that he gets back to it even coming off the bench. Julian Champagnie had a fantastic game against the Knicks earlier this season, hitting 11 3-pointers. I think he's going to start off shooting hot in this series as well. Mikal Bridges, the unsung hero for the Knicks, over 3.5 rebounds. Really love this line. And as I mentioned, love the over in this game. Let's get some points, Craig.
All right, SPJ coming on the show, and hopefully we'll get him on again before game 2. Thanks again for coming on, and happy birthday to your mom, too.
Thanks, man.
Hey there, it's your buddy Craig Carton. If you're trying to find out how to get all the great content that me and Tyrone Johnson give you every single day, here's Tyrone to tell you how.
You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and of course, Amazon Music as well. We're at all 4.
That's right. It's the Craig Carton Show podcast every weekday morning live at 11, replayed at noon on YouTube and on SportsGrid throughout the country. Check it out.
They're trading right now currently at 74 wins on the season, which means the Kalshi marketplace goes by 5-win intervals. 75-plus wins for those Houston Astros. That's a 49% contract to the yes, which a $100 investment pays back $205, Greg. I'm not high on this team. Look, again, 75 wins for the Astros is terrible, but this team might not even look the same as where we stand today by the time we get to that deadline.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
For Abdul Carter. Hey, son, you want to be a leader? Show up to meetings on time. Don't be late to practice. This guy's sitting there trying to tell me that he's got a problem with Jackson Dart going to a Trump rally when he can't even show up to a meeting on time? And he can't show up to practice and he's late? Dude.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
We're back on the trail of the PGA Tour to see if we could pick some winners this week. We got Brady Cannon in the house for that. It was awfully close. Before we get to the Memorial, it was awfully close last week, Brady, which to me was the most fantastic finish of any of the golf tournaments that we've seen on the tour this year. I mean, that's just impossible to deny. Russell Henley did win. That was not the story. It was an insane playoff. Eric Cole was involved. It was an insane finish. You had 4 or 5 golfers all feeling like with 10 minutes to go in the tournament, they had a chance to win. You just don't see this that often. And so that, and it's not to say that the Schwab is an anonymous tournament, because it's not. But I mean, to see everybody having a shot at the end like this was just rare.
It was awesome. And the course really delivered. You know, your winning score in regulation was 12 under par. That proves that it's a really good test. And this is not a massive golf course. It's relatively short by tour standards. It just was a great test for these players. And like we talked about last week, it's also a good indicator for possible U.S. Open success. So maybe Russell Henley, maybe Eric Cole, maybe some of these contenders land on your radar for next week at Shinnecock. You know, talk about all that drama coming down the stretch. I'm heading into Sunday with Eric Cole in first place, with Matt Meisner in third place, and Ryan Gerard in second place, and I still couldn't get the winner. Russell Henley beat me with 4 straight birdies to knock me out.
Jesus. Yeah. I mean, it was just such an insane ending. I'm sorry that you were on the back end of that, Brady, but I know that this week you enjoy this one. I think that you've mentioned that this is one of your favorites. I don't know if that's still the case, the Memorial, which is this week. And I know you've always done real well with some bombs here. So everybody is back in the field this week. Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Oberg, Cam Young. It is a who's who in this big tune-up for the upcoming U.S. Open here in a couple of weeks. What do you make of the field? It's definitely a star-studded one, and I think certainly this is one that Scotty has had success at in the past.
Yeah, he's going for a three-peat. The 2-time defending champion is Scotty Scheffler, and you have, you know, some star-studded names as far as past winners as well. Justin Rose, Hideki Matsuyama. You know, and it's very much, you talk about being a favorite of mine. I love Riviera, where the LA Open, the Genesis Invitational, and then the Memorial. I think those are a couple of the best golf tournaments on tour that are not major championships. And this is a wonderful test prior to the Masters. Jack, of course, this is Jack's place. Nobody doesn't show up for Mr. Nicklaus. He was inspired by Augusta National. The greens are very similar, fast and undulated. But it's kind of like a combination of a Masters and a U.S. Open, where you have some very thick rough that is going to be especially penal off the tee. So you've got to do everything well here. And, of course, that's why guys like Scotty Scheffler and Victor Hovland and what have you rise to the top. So it ought to be another great one. And, again, it's another good pointer to who might be ready to take down a trophy next week at Shinnecock.
So I think when I look at it here, let's show the field real quick here, guys, here for Brady one more time, because Brady's going to give his picks. But Matty Fitzpatrick and Henley, I guess, after the win last week. I mean, Brady, these were usually 25 and 30s to 1. No longer the case. They're near the top here in terms of the field.
Well, it's very interesting, Craig. I've played some really big long shots for what is now 3 weeks in a row. And you put Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy in this field. And next thing you know, you've got your Fitzpatricks in the neighborhood of 25 and Henley and that and Schauffele. But, pretty soon you're looking at Jordan Spieth and some of the top players in the world that are 50, 60. Adam Scott. I played Adam Scott at 70 to 1. I played Gary Woodland at 80 to 1. Woodland just finished 6th last week at Colonial and has a win earlier this year. Spieth has been playing really, really well. He's in the neighborhood of 50 to 1. Nikolai Højgaard, I got at 75 to 1. Chris Gotterup, we know how good this kid has been. A top 10 at the PGA Championship. A lot of people like him next week at Shinnecock because it's a very Open Championship style test. And of course, Chris Gotterup, a winner at the Scottish Open last year. So yeah, Spieth, Højgaard, Gotterup, Woodland, Scott, and then the Canadian Nick Taylor, a half a dozen on my card this week. And there's not one shorter than 50 to 1. And, thanks to Scotty and Rory for elevating those odds on everybody else.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense there. So those are Brady's picks this week. Good luck, Brady, to you with all of your selections, certainly, and we'll catch up again soon. Thanks for coming on Newswire.
Yeah, we'll talk to you next week for the U.S. Open, my friend.
There it is. Brady Cannon here with us. We'll take a quick time out on Newswire. When we come back, Sam McQuillan joins us from Legal Sports Report. Don't go away.
Hey there, it's your buddy Craig Carton. If you're trying to find out how to get all the great content that me and Tyrone Johnson give you every single day, here's Tyrone to tell you how.
You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and of course, Amazon Music as well. We're at all four.
That's right. It's the Craig Carton Show podcast every weekday morning live at 11, replayed at noon on YouTube and on SportsGrid throughout the country. Check it out.
They're trading right now currently at 74 wins on the season, which means the Kalshi marketplace goes by 5-win intervals. 75-plus wins for those Houston Astros. That's a 49% contract to the yes, which a $100 investment pays back $205, Greg. I'm not high on this team. Look, again, 75 wins for the Astros is terrible, but this team might not even look the same as where we stand today by the time we get to that deadline.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
For Abdul Carter. Hey, son, you want to be a leader? Show up to meetings on time. Don't be late to practice. This guy's sitting there trying to tell me that he's got a problem with Jackson Dart going to a Trump rally when he can't even show up to a meeting on time and he can't show up to practice and he's late? Dude.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Welcome back to Newswire here on SportsGrid. Always fun to catch up with Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report. He's all ready for Game 1 of the NBA Finals tonight. If you can't tell, he's rooting for the Spurs. No, I'm just kidding. He's a Knicks fan. As you can see, a lot of blue there. All right, Sam, we'll get to your Knicks here in a second. Let's start off with Massachusetts. And certainly, we're hearing a lot about limits and people being forced to not be able to bet as much as they want. Some of it, obviously, is for protection. Other sports books will limit you when they think you're winning too much. If you don't think that exists, then you've never bet on sports before. Massachusetts, I guess, has a new notification process in play. Why do they even need to notify you, Sam? Does it really make a difference? You tell me.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the question that begs answering here. You had Massachusetts about a month or two ago pass this new rule, hearing concerns from bettors in the industry about limiting stake factoring, as it's sometimes called, which is a controversial practice where, like you mentioned, Craig, sports books will limit how much winning bettors can bet, oftentimes to amounts where it's not even tenable to bet, where it's less than $1. So basically stopping you from betting altogether. They heard those concerns in Massachusetts. They've been very active compared to most other states that make these kind of rules. So they passed this new law where anytime a sports bettor gets limited, a sports book in Massachusetts is required to notify them. Within 48 hours, they're required to tell them, exactly why they're being limited and explain exactly what kind of bets that applies to, whether it's just basketball, just football, all kinds of sports. So now that rule is actually in place, you're already seeing, messages get sent out to customers in Massachusetts. It also applies to anyone retroactively who had been limited in the past. So it's not just customers that are being limited, in this 2-day span. It's customers that have, in some cases, been limited months or years ago. In Massachusetts, I have some messages I'll read to you that these companies are sending. One from DraftKings says that these limits were imposed for internal risk management purposes after observing activity indicative of targeting perceived market inefficiency. So that's obviously quite a lot of jargon and not very specific. It says it applies to all bets. Another one from Fanatics says it observed behavior that's aligned with a network of restricted users that signal potential arbitrage positions. So basically telling users that we think that you're targeting our book to ensure profit, betting on both sides. That's kind of the conundrum here, is now that you're actually getting these messages that are required to be sent in the state, it's whether or not they actually, go far enough to explain to bettors exactly what's going on, why they were limited. All the messages I've seen, none have mentioned specific bets. The commission, when they were drafting this rule, was really concerned about kind of this thing entirely. Just, companies saying it's a business decision. You've been limited. Sorry. So that is kind of the first step of trying to address this controversial practice. Now, sportsbooks also say that less than 1% of customers actually get limited. It's actually very hard to be a profitable sports bettor. Whether or not that's actually true, that is what this is kind of designed to help get more information about. So the commission could always come back, change rules, adapt, see if this is sufficient or not. But so far, it's the first time customers getting these kind of messages. It's pretty interesting to see where we go from here.
Interesting. Now, I would say that Illinois is one of the more interesting states as well, because certainly they get so many people in Chicago and close by betting on sports. And certainly what they want to do is tax sports betting, and they've accomplished that. And I know they even raised the tax in the past, but now prediction markets are coming into play. And I'm not sure about fantasy sports, honestly, Sam. I don't know why fantasy sports is lumped in with prediction markets and sports betting, considering fantasy sports is a much smaller number. But you tell me, do you think that this is realistic here for something to pass in Illinois? Because it seems like whatever they want in that state, they get passed.
Well, with regards to passing it, that part is done. The new budget has been sent to the governor. It's already set to take effect in July. The $56 billion budget. So to answer your question, why fantasy sports are getting lumped in, I think anytime you're trying to raise $56 billion, you look for any way you can do that. The fantasy sports part of it is going to tax fantasy sports operators about 1.75% of the revenue they make on daily fantasy sports. So it's not that much. It's about $6 million of, again, the $56 billion budget. It just kind of got lumped in. I would say it was probably something easy for them to do. There's not much resistance. Like you mentioned, it's not a huge kind of industry at this point. So a lot of the focus, lobbying wise, is on other stuff like sports betting, where Illinois has passed a number of tax increases. And now in this budget as well, a large majority of that money they're attempting to raise over the next 2 years is from a potential tax on prediction markets, which is obviously complicated because you have, over 20 lawsuits happening right now between prediction markets and states, the CFTC involved as well. Essentially, prediction markets saying we don't have to follow any state laws, any state rules, because we're solely regulated on the federal level. The CFTC is the only one basically who gets to tell us what to do, who gets to impose new rules like the one Illinois is trying to pass. So whether or not this actually gets paid is a different story. It has been passed. What's probably going to happen now is there's going to be another lawsuit where companies like Kalshi, Crypto.com, Robinhood, who are already in legal battle with Illinois, file to stop this tax from being implemented. And then eventually, maybe it all gets figured out by the Supreme Court someday. Now, if the Supreme Court eventually does rule that states actually do have the authority and power to tax and regulate prediction markets, just having this law on the book in Illinois would help the state easier kind of just, flip that switch if and when that eventually happens, to be able to tax them. But I would look at it from a bigger kind of higher level thing of just another instance of states trying to take measures to impose their jurisdiction over prediction markets. Obviously they're arguing that this is basically sports betting that's bypassing our laws. So by passing more laws to kind of regulate it, I think they're trying to, solidify the position to eventually one day maybe rein in this industry. But if they lose that battle, we could see this law repealed and taxes not paid. So it's a lot of if, maybe we don't know what's going to happen with this industry right now, but certainly it's catching a lot of action of states, especially Illinois, which again, is lawsuit with Kalshi, lawsuit with the CFTC. And I wouldn't be surprised, Craig, if more states try to do this kind of proactive passing of a tax while the court cases play out.
So let's move on now to DraftKings. This is a fascinating story here, Sam, because I honestly didn't realize that they weren't using their own prediction market technology in order to create their own platform here. And it seems like they want to do so. But why didn't they in the first place, Sam? Did they just kind of get caught in this groundswell of everyone doing prediction markets and they weren't ready, so they had to outsource another company to do it, which to me is like the low-lying fruit here. That's what makes the most sense. And so how can they save money? It would be do it themselves. But are they allowed to do it themselves? Like, how does that work with the CFTC?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Craig. I think you hit it on the head with, DraftKings and FanDuel weren't preparing for years to launch their own prediction markets. They've been spending all their money on sports betting. It actually took them years to own their own sports betting technology. So what we're seeing now is very similar with the prediction market space. DraftKings went live in December. All of a sudden, it's trying to compete and, offer its product in states like California and Texas. And in order to do so and go online real quick, it had to use third-party prediction market technology. Basically, it had to use stuff that was approved by the CFTC. DraftKings, it takes a while to get approved. They had to use somebody else's technology. So they're using Crypto.com and CME Group right now. They're using their contracts to list on their markets, which is why in October they bought Railbird Exchange, which is a CFTC licensed exchange. And now it just takes time to implement that technology to get approved. So the latest step that happened this week is they filed to offer their own money lines, spreads, player props, head-to-head performance markets, and eventually parlays. Basically, so DraftKings is offering it through themselves. They get to choose exactly what is listed, how quickly it launches, and most importantly, Craig, to make as much money as possible for it. So it's another step in this prediction market saga, and obviously a big part of DraftKings' business plan for the rest of 2026. It's certainly a big move for them. We'll see what more comes of it.
Awesome, as always, Sam. And by the way, I know you are a big Knicks fan, and you're not an obnoxious one, so I'm going to wish you the best of luck with your team tonight. Thanks again for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Craig. It means a lot.
We'll be right back.
Hey there, it's your buddy Craig Carton. If you're trying to find out how to get all the great content that me and Tyrone Johnson give you every single day, here's Tyrone to tell you how.
You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and of course, Amazon Music as well. We're at all four.
That's right. It's the Craig Carton Show podcast every weekday morning live at 11, replayed at noon on YouTube and on SportsGrid throughout the country. Check it out.
They're trading right now currently at 74 wins on the season, which means the Kalshi marketplace goes by 5-win intervals. 75-plus wins for those Houston Astros. That's a 49% contract to the yes, which a $100 investment pays back $205, Greg. I'm not high on this team. Look, again, 75 wins for the Astros is terrible, but this team might not even look the same as where we stand today by the time we get to that deadline.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
For Abdul Carter. Hey, son, you want to be a leader? Show up to meetings on time. Don't be late to practice. This guy's sitting there trying to tell me that he's got a problem with Jackson Dart going to a Trump rally when he can't even show up to a meeting on time and he can't show up to practice and he's late? Dude.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. It's always fun to catch up with Danny Burke and talk some baseball sometimes with him, Cubs and everything else. But today we're going to focus on the NBA. But Danny, before we do that, I don't know if you're at liberty to talk a lot about the new venture that you're with, but certainly I want to maybe give a shout out if I can, because I know certainly prediction markets are very popular, not just here in the United States but abroad as well. And you're going to be taking that head on, aren't you?
Yeah, Craig, happy to be with you and appreciate you letting me speak on it a little bit. Yeah, we just started a new company, new show. I host called On the Record is our show, and it's by Called It Media. That is the company. If you go to calledit.media, you can get involved in. Like you said, it's a strong emphasis on Kalshi, on Polymarket, and basically, looking at top trades of the day and everybody in the community competing with one another, bringing on a panel of guests. So, yeah, we're getting that going slowly but surely, but a new venture on the horizon. So excited to get that going, and especially surrounding the World Cup. And like you said, NBA finals tonight, and certainly plenty of baseball.
Yeah, definitely so. But congrats to you, Danny, and certainly rooting for you and your new venture too, and all the best success with it. But certainly we have you on for your opinions because you do such a good job with that. And so let's weigh in on some hoops tonight here. And what I really like about this NBA finals is we got a lot of varying opinions on who's going to win this thing, like a lot of varying opinions. And, I know that you're living in the Midwest, so you're not going to give me your Knicks bias, and you're not going to give me your Spurs bias. You're just going to tell me who you think is going to win. Let's start off with game one tonight. Spurs -4.5, total 218.5. I'd love your view of this game and then your view of the series, if you wouldn't mind.
Man, this game one is so dang tricky, Craig, because I'm leaning toward the notion of seeing a bit more value with the Knicks, not only for game one, but the entirety of the series. And it does seem like from the public perception, the Spurs are certainly the hot hand. And why wouldn't they be? They just took down the defending national champions. You have an insane player in Victor Wembanyama, and the Knicks have been off for a little bit of time. So the rest versus rust can play into account, which is ultimately why I'm staying away from the game one spread, albeit I would gravitate, like I said, a bit toward New York. But Craig, because I already like the Knicks a little bit value-wise with their price for this series, and maybe thinking game one out of the gates on the road could be a little tricky, ultimately I'm going to wait to invest in New York. So thinking they're at a disadvantage here, you're already getting, like you see, plus price on them to win the finals right now. Why not wait to see what happens in game one? Because if they lose, then I'm going to get a better price, presumably 2-1 or better. And if they win, sure, it'll get more to even money, but then I can wait to see what happens in game two and approach it from that standpoint. So that's kind of how I'm going to look at it from an outright side for the series. And then in this game, I'm just going to be looking more at props, which I know we'll divulge into in a bit. But a bet that I did make, and a lot of people may not like this because it is chalky, but I do think this is the strongest play. And it's for the series to go over 5.5 total games played. The best price that I saw, now there may be better ones out there, but I saw minus $1.70. So it is very chalky. But I really do see this series going to 6 or 7 games. And that's kind of been my sentiment even before the Western Conference Finals have concluded, because you have a Spurs team that's great, but lacks a little bit of depth, certainly lacks experience. The Knicks, on the other side, we were a little shaky of them heading into the postseason, but getting a breeze through the Eastern Conference playoff portion of things gives them an ability to come in healthy and rested in time to prepare. So I do think this is going to be a really tough battle, especially when the Spurs are going to play at MSG, which is going to be nuts. So I think this series goes 6 or 7 games, regardless of who ends up on top.
I think that's a great take. I think a long series just has to be in store for this one. I really do feel that way as well. You have your card in full here for the NBA, because I do want to hit some baseball here with you. You want to roll that out?
Yeah, for sure. The play that I like the most in terms of game one for a player prop, despite me seeing value with the Knicks, I don't necessarily see an edge here with Karl Anthony Towns getting over his props tonight, but I do see it with his under for points, rebounds, and assists combined. So Cats PRA under 33.5 minus $1.20. I took a little bit earlier this morning. Now, I don't like to go too much with the sample size of the regular season, but it's worth noting in the one game at 20.7 rebounds, 3 assists. So he stayed under. Then 12.14 rebounds, 1 assist. This postseason, he's at 17, 10, and 6 per game. If you really want to round up, he's at about 34 combined. So that's being generous. But now it's game one of the finals. A lot of pressure on the road against Wemby. It's going to be a tough matchup. So Cat under 33.5 PRA, I like a lot. And then a little bit chalkier here, something to maybe dabble on a bit. Castle under 1.5 threes. He stayed under this last 6 out of 7 games. Not a high volume 3-point shooter. And the Knicks are number 1 in the postseason so far at opponent 3-point field goal percentage. So Castle under 1.5 threes, but especially like Cat under his PRA.
All right, so now let's get to some baseball because I know Danny loves talking some hardball as well. And to me, the most fascinating number and game of the day has to be the Pittsburgh Pirates, Danny. It has to be Paul Skeens because I don't know what has happened this season, but this guy cannot win day games. Like, he is statistically one of the worst starting pitchers for day games in baseball this season, and he's minus 162. So should I just close my eyes and just throw some money at Houston, who I don't like at all? Because, again, it's a day game today. I mean, if he loses again today, I mean, it's it's unprecedented. Okay, so it is a night game tonight. So that just ruins everything for me. Thank you very much. Just ruined my entire narrative here on the show. It just shows you. Pittsburgh at Houston tonight, under the lights. I'll take Pittsburgh.
There we go. It makes our decision simple there. And, you know, I'm kind of glad that we ended up that way because while I don't like the price for Pittsburgh, I dislike Spencer Arrighetti even more so. And look, his ERA is good right now at 134, but his xFIP's teetering toward 5 and his expected ERA is at 470. He's given up 5 walks per 9 innings, low strikeout to walk ratio under 9%. So there's just a lot of sketchy numbers with Arrighetti, assuming that he's going to start struggling going forward. In Pittsburgh, somehow, some way, the Pirates are hitting well. 116 weighted runs created plus against righties the last month. So I like the look of Pittsburgh. It is juicy. If you want to go an alternate angle, maybe team total over 4.5 runs for a little bit of plus money. That would be another angle I'd pursue with Pittsburgh as well.
Yeah, so I would love to blame Chris, my producer, for this because usually that's what I do. Oh, you got me. You gave me the wrong time. This was all on me. This one today. So blame me. Okay, Ohtani, Zach Gallen tonight, 9:41. That's definitely a night game. Arizona and LA. Give me a 15-second on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's chalky again, but Dodgers run line minus 115. How do you trust Gallen here? ERA over 5, xFIPS over 430, and Ohtani's been that dude once again on the bump. So give me the Dodgers on the run line minus $1.15.
All right, Danny, congrats on the new gig. I'll see if I still have my gig after this segment. Have a great one.
Appreciate it, Craig. Take care.
Hey there, it's your buddy Craig Carton. If you're trying to find out how to get all the great content that me and Tyrone Johnson give you every single day, here's Tyrone to tell you how.
You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and of course, Amazon Music as well. We're at all 4.
That's right. It's the Craig Carton Show podcast every weekday morning live at 11, replayed at noon on YouTube and on SportsGrid throughout the country. Check it out.
They're trading right now currently at 74 wins on the season, which means the Kalshi marketplace goes by 5-win intervals. 75-plus wins for those Houston Astros. That's a 49% contract to the yes, which a $100 investment pays back $205, Greg. I'm not high on this team. Look, again, 75 wins for the Astros is terrible, but this team might not even look the same as where we stand today by the time we get to that deadline.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
For Abdul Carter. Hey, son, you want to be a leader? Show up to meetings on time. Don't be late to practice. This guy's sitting there trying to tell me that he's got a problem with Jackson Dart going to a Trump rally when he can't even show up to a meeting on time and he can't show up to practice and he's late? Dude.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Big announcement in the NFL. If you're a fantasy football player, this is the player to avoid, right? Caleb Williams. I don't believe in this, but I guess there is something to say about the Madden cover because he's on it this year, and everyone says that there is this Madden jinx. Who was on the cover of the Madden last year, guys? Do you remember who was on the cover of last year's Madden? I never even remember year to year. But he's the first Bears player to ever get on the cover of Madden, and of course that will come out later this summer. Meanwhile, A.J. Brown, that's not him, but A.J. Brown is now a member of the New England Patriots, and for the first time as a member of the Patriots, Brown spoke about the trade and how this is truly a dream come true.
Just talking to my mom, and I was like, man, I'm still in awe. You know, I'm trying to adjust, and you know, walking up the hill with the uniform on. I was like, man, this is real. You know, and caught myself one point in practice, wasn't paying attention because I was like, dang, I'm a Patriot, you know, you know, and just trying to take it all in as much as I can. You know, obviously, you know, I got back to work quickly, but it's levels to it, and like I said, I'm enjoying it. It's obviously I know this ain't heaven, but you know, it's close to it.
When you guys Probably Brown has a big season, I would guess. Drake May has a really big target there. He's always been a good player. Just seemed like he wore out his welcome in Philadelphia. All right, we'll wrap up the show with the latest from the World Cup, which begins next week. Also, Air Corgi makes her NBA Finals picks, that and a ball off the head for a home run. That's not Jose Canseco. Time now for Last Licks. With the World Cup starting next week, maybe it's time to take a couple of days off. If you like. Stella is reallocating $100,000, the beer, of its World Cup marketing budget toward expensing New York City-based fans' match day orders and giving them permission to skip work from home and instead work from bar. How's that going to work? Starting on June 11th, weekday matches that are falling during U.S. working hours. Fans are 21 and up who purchase a Stella at local bars can submit their receipt as an expense report for reimbursement on their website. So this is really cute and this is really fun, but I guarantee is not going to fly anywhere in New York. A great idea and a really great marketing tool, I think, as well. But let's just be honest, unless you're actually taking PTO time, you're not going to be able to use a bar's excuse to take a day off from work. That is not going to work. All right. Air Corgi has made her NBA Finals selection. And this is the dog that has done a really good job at picking games by knocking them into a basket. I don't know if you have seen this before. Unfortunately, we can't show it to you because of the rights on the video. But Air Corgi has made the predictions. It is a female dog. And she went back and forth, by the way, throughout the series by knocking basketballs into those little baskets and has decided that the Spurs are going to win the NBA championship. So Air Corgi was correct on every single game in the Western Conference Finals. And so if you believe this dog, then you believe that you should be taking the Spurs at minus money to win the NBA championship this season in 7 games. There you go. Finally, one of the really unfortunate moments in sports in the 90s was watching Jose Canseco take a fly ball off the head that went over the fence. It was a replay that has been in infamy for many, many years. But now, folks, we have another. That's right. TJ Rumfeld of the Colorado Rockies hit a home run last night, 364 feet, and only 364 feet, because it hit Joe Adell's head and went over the fence. Now, you may remember Joe Adell made some of the best catches in baseball earlier this season, robbing home runs in a game. But unfortunately, Joe Adell is now in the Jose Canseco category because that ball, which we can't show you, went off the noggin of the red hat of Adell and went over the fence. Poor Joe Adell, compared now to Jose Canseco. Hopefully, Adell can continue his career on from this, because Canseco, basically, that was the end. Once Canseco got hit in the head, he still played. He played for the Yankees. He played for the White Sox, but he was never the same after that moment. All right, that'll do it for the show today, folks. Great show to everybody involved, except me, by the way, today. Major screw up for me on the time of the game, but that's beside the point. SBJ was great. He was on the show. So was Brady Cannon, Sam McQuillan, and Danny Burke. All great guests here on the program today. Tomorrow, Robert Forbeck will be with us on the show talking Belmont Stakes. So make sure you tune in tomorrow. He'll pick a winner at the upcoming Belmont on Saturday. Thanks again to Tommy, and of course for Frank and for Chris, I'm Craig Mish. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. See you back tomorrow for our next edition of NewsWire.
Hey there, it's your buddy Craig Carton. If you're trying to find out how to get all the great content that me and Tyrone Johnson give you every single day, here's Tyrone to tell you how.
You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and of course, Amazon Music as well. We're at all four.
That's right. It's the Craig Carton Show podcast every weekday morning live at 11, replayed at noon on YouTube and on SportsGrid throughout the country. Check it out.
They're trading right now currently at 74 wins on the season, which means the Kalshi marketplace goes by 5-win intervals. 75-plus wins for those Houston Astros. That's a 49% contract to the yes, which a $100 investment pays back $205, Greg. I'm not high on this team. Look, again, 75 wins for the Astros is terrible, but this team might not even look the same as where we stand today by the time we get to that deadline.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
For Abdul Carter. Hey, son, you want to be a leader? Show up to meetings on time. Don't be late to practice. This guy's sitting there trying to tell me that he's got a problem with Jackson Dart going to a Trump rally when he can't even show up to a meeting on time? And he can't show up to practice and he's late? Dude.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.